She grew up in a small, crumbling house at the edge of town. The walls were thin, and the roof leaked whenever it rained. The floorboards creaked with every step, and in winter, the cold would seep through cracks, making her shiver despite the thick layers of clothing she wore. Life had never been easy for her. She was the youngest in a family that had little to give, and even less love to spare. Her days were filled with chores, fetching water from the nearby well, sweeping the floor, washing dishes, and helping her older siblings wherever she could. She learned from an early age that life demanded work, not complaints. Her parents were distant, more focused on surviving than nurturing. They never spoke about dreams or ambitions. Her mother's eyes often carried a tiredness that weighed heavier than words, and her father's hands were always rough, either from labor or from impatience. They provided food, yes, and shelter, but never warmth or encouragement. It was as if she existed only to carry out duties rather than to be loved. She often wondered what it felt like to have someone cheer for her, to tell her she mattered, but those feelings were foreign, like tales from a storybook she would never touch. School was both an escape and a challenge. The building was old, with walls that smelled of chalk and dust, and the windows were smudged with years of grime. Teachers rarely had time to give attention to all the children, and she, being quiet and unassuming, often went unnoticed. Yet she loved learning. She cherished the rare moments when a teacher would notice her diligence. When her hand raised to answer a question and a smile would flicker across the teacher's face, those moments, though brief, felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. But outside of school, the world was harsh. Other children would tease her about her worn-out clothes and tattered shoes. They would whisper behind her back, make cruel jokes, and sometimes, in their ignorance, push her into the dirt just to see her flinch. She learned to shrink, to make herself small, hoping to be invisible. In the evenings, after everyone else had gone home, she would sit alone in the garden, hugging her knees, and imagine a life different from the one she had. A life where she could laugh freely, where her parents would hug her without being asked, and where she could dream without fear. Despite the hardships, she had a resilience that no one noticed. She found small joys in the simplest things: a butterfly landing on a flower, the smell of rain on dry soil, the laughter of children at play. Even if she could not join them, she learned to appreciate tiny victories, finishing her chores before sundown, helping her younger brother with his homework, or managing to save a few coins from errands to buy herself a small treat. These small wins became her secret treasures, a way to survive the weight of neglect. Her adolescence brought new challenges. The world outside the crumbling house grew bigger, and so did her awareness of how different her life was from others. She watched other girls go to school in neat uniforms, their hair clean and combed, their shoes polished. They carried bags with colorful books, chatted about dreams of becoming teachers, doctors, or artists. Meanwhile, she wore hand-me-downs, often patched and mended, carrying her old books with torn covers. She wanted to fit in, to be seen, but every attempt ended in disappointment. She tried speaking up in class, but her voice trembled, unsure if it belonged in a world that seemed to ignore her. Her relationship with her family grew more complicated. Her siblings, themselves struggling, sometimes found it easier to mock her than to support her. Her parents remained distant, absorbed in survival, leaving her to navigate life largely on her own. Even love felt conditional, measured by usefulness rather than genuine care. Yet, she did not complain outwardly. She internalized her pain, storing it like stones in a backpack she carried everywhere. One day, a distant relative arrived unexpectedly. They were polite, smiling, and seemed genuinely interested in her life. This relative asked questions that no one else ever did about her school, her hobbies, her dreams. They seemed to see her in a way no one else had. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope that perhaps someone understood her, that perhaps her existence mattered beyond chores and survival. The visit was brief, but it planted a seed of curiosity and longing. Around the same time, she discovered an old box in the attic of their house. Inside were letters, faded with time, written in a careful hand. The letters mentioned her birth, her name, and hinted at secrets she could not yet comprehend. She did not know why these letters had been hidden, or why her parents had never spoken of them. The curiosity gnawed at her, a mix of fear and excitement. Who was she really? Why had her story been kept from her? Questions that had no answers yet, but she knew she had to find them. School became her sanctuary and her battlefield. She studied harder, not just to learn, but to prepare herself for a future she could barely imagine. Books became her companions, teachers her rare allies. She excelled quietly, without fanfare, earning occasional praise that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Yet, the questions about her past never left her. Every achievement, every small victory, carried a bittersweet taste, because she longed for the truth that had been denied for so long. Her teenage years were also filled with encounters that shaped her understanding of kindness. Neighbors who shared extra food, teachers who stayed after class to help her, friends who offered a listening ear. These small acts of generosity taught her that the world, while harsh, could also hold pockets of warmth. She learned to accept help, even when pride and fear made it difficult. Slowly, she began to believe that life could be more than the shadows she had always known. One evening, while helping her mother sort through old belongings, she came across a medical report. It was incomplete, but the name on it was hers. The report mentioned a DNA test and a connection to a family she had never met. Her heart raced, a mixture of excitement and fear. Could it be possible that her life was different from what she had been told? Could there be people who truly belonged to her, waiting somewhere to be found? She did not speak of it immediately, unsure of how to process the emotions swirling inside her. As weeks passed, the thought of the report consumed her. She imagined a life beyond the crumbling house, beyond the chores and neglect. She pictured people who might welcome her, who might love her for who she was. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. The notion of family, of belonging, had been a distant dream, almost forgotten in the struggle to survive. Now, it seemed within reach, yet she had no guide to navigate the unknown. Her curiosity became determination. She saved every penny she could, worked extra hours after school, and asked questions discreetly. She learned about DNA tests, about how they could reveal hidden connections, and about the possibility of finding answers to questions she had long carried in silence. Each step she took was careful, yet bold, fueled by a desire to uncover the truth. She felt a strange mix of fear and hope-fear of what she might discover, and hope that the discovery would change everything. The turning point came when the distant relative returned. Sensing her interest, they spoke gently, offering guidance on how to proceed with the DNA inquiry. They assured her that whatever the outcome, she would be supported. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of partnership. Someone walking with her, instead of leaving her to face the world alone. The relative's belief in her abilities strengthened her resolve, and she knew she had to see this through, no matter the obstacles. As she prepared to take the test, memories of her childhood flooded back the loneliness, the chores, the constant struggle to be seen. Each memory, though painful, strengthened her determination. She realized that whatever the result of the DNA test, her life had shaped her into a resilient, thoughtful, and compassionate young woman. The test was not just a search for identity. It was a quest to validate her existence, to affirm that she mattered, that her story was worthy of being known. The day she sent the DNA sample was a day of mixed emotions. She felt anticipation, anxiety, and an odd sense of liberation. She had taken a step toward uncovering the truth, toward rewriting the story of her life. While she did not yet know what the outcome would be, she felt empowered, knowing that she had acted, that she had not remained a passive observer in her own story. The act itself was transformative. In the evenings, she continued with her routine, but a subtle change had begun. She walked with a little more confidence, spoke with a touch more certainty, and dreamed with a new fervor. The possibility of a different life lingered in her mind, a shimmering thread of hope connecting her past to a future she had barely imagined. Though the world outside remained unchanged, inside her, a revolution was quietly unfolding. She knew the journey ahead would not be easy. Answers might bring joy, but they could also bring challenges, complexities, and truths she had never anticipated. Yet she was ready. Her childhood had taught her resilience, her school had taught her discipline, and the small acts of kindness she had encountered had taught her to trust cautiously. She was prepared to face the unknown, to uncover the secrets of her birth, and to claim the life that had always seemed just beyond reach. With her standing by the window of her small room, looking out at the world she had known all her life, the rain had just stopped, leaving the streets wet and glistening under the soft light of evening. She held the DNA report in her hands, her heart beating with a mixture of fear and hope. She knew that her life was about to change in ways she could not yet imagine, but she was ready to face whatever truth awaited her. For the first time, she felt that she was not invisible, that her story mattered, and that the world, despite its hardships, might finally have a place for her after sending the DNA sample. Life continued in its usual rhythm, but she felt different inside. Each morning, she awoke with a mixture of hope and anxiety. The house remained the same, cold, noisy, and crowded, but she carried a secret. A possibility that the world might hold answers to the questions she had spent years carrying alone. She walked to school with her books clutched tightly, her mind replaying the letters she had found, the distant relatives' words, and the DNA tests she had sent. Every step felt heavier and lighter at the same time, burdened with expectation, yet lifted by hope. At school, her routine remained unchanged on the surface, but she noticed herself seeing things differently. She observed the smiles, the laughter, the interactions among students, and wondered how her life might have been if she had grown up in a different home. Yet she did not let envy consume her. Instead, she used the contrast as motivation, reminding herself that her story was far from over. She threw herself into her studies with renewed energy, answering questions aloud, writing neatly in her notebooks, and engaging in discussions. Teachers began noticing her persistence, her attentiveness, and the thoughtful way she approached problems. For the first time, she felt like her efforts could be recognized for their own value, not just as survival tactics. Outside of school, life remained challenging. Her parents' indifference persisted, and her siblings continued to be preoccupied with their own concerns. Yet small things began to shift subtly. Her mother, noticing her curiosity and growing confidence, started to share minor stories about the family, fragments of history she had never heard. Though these revelations were incomplete and sometimes vague, they were enough to stir a sense of belonging and curiosity. She realized that the pieces of her life were scattered, and she was determined to fit them together. The arrival of another distant relative brought a new dimension to her quest. This person was more knowledgeable about family matters and offered guidance on how to pursue the DNA results further. They spoke of people who might be her biological family, possibilities that had been hidden for reasons she could not yet understand. Each conversation left her both excited and anxious. She longed to know who she truly was, but the fear of rejection or disappointment was never far behind. She learned to balance her hope with caution, understanding that life often held surprises in ways one could not predict. During this period, she also began to notice the small, overlooked moments of kindness in the world around her. A neighbor who offered her extra food without question. A teacher who stayed late to help her understand a lesson. A classmate who shared notes when she missed a day. These gestures reminded her that while her home life was difficult, the world had pockets of warmth. She began to rely on these small connections, understanding that human kindness could provide strength and courage. Her evenings were often spent revisiting the letters she had found in the attic. She carefully read them again and again, trying to decipher the meaning behind the words. Each sentence felt like a puzzle piece, hinting at a past that had been hidden from her. She imagined the life she might have had if the letters had been shared openly, wondering about the people who had written them and the decisions that had led to her growing up in neglect. These thoughts were bittersweet, bringing both pain and determination. She realized that discovering the truth was not just about finding family, it was about understanding herself, her origins, and her place in the world. School projects became opportunities to test herself and her abilities. She began participating in competitions, debates, and extracurricular activities with quiet determination. Her peers started noticing her intelligence and commitment, and even those who had once overlooked her began to acknowledge her presence. Yet, she remained humble, knowing that recognition was not the goal understanding her past was. Still, each small success gave her confidence, reinforcing her belief that she could face the truths that awaited her. One afternoon, as she was walking home from school, she encountered a group of children teasing a younger girl for wearing worn clothes. Something inside her stirred. She remembered her own experiences with cruelty and neglect. Without thinking, she stepped forward, spoke firmly to the group, and defended the girl. It was a small act, but it felt monumental. She realized that her hardships had not only shaped her resilience, but it also instilled empathy. She could recognize suffering and respond with compassion, a strength she had never had to exercise before. This moment became a turning point, reinforcing her belief that her life, despite its difficulties, had value and purpose. The weeks passed, and the wait for the DNA results stretched her patience. She kept herself busy with schoolwork, small projects at home, and writing in her journal. Writing became a form of therapy, a way to process her emotions and articulate the hopes, fears, and questions that swirled inside her. She documented her childhood, her struggles, her dreams, and even the little victories she achieved every day. Through writing, she began to understand that her identity was more than just her past, it was also her choices, her resilience, and her ability to dream despite adversity. Her parents remained largely unchanged, but their attitudes began to shift subtly as they noticed her growing independence and confidence. They did not express pride openly, but there were small signs, fewer scolding words, occasional recognition of her efforts, and a slight easing of the constant demands. She observed these changes quietly, understanding that people often express care in ways that are difficult to perceive. She learned patience and perspective, realizing that love and recognition could take many forms, sometimes hidden beneath the surface. As the day to receive the DNA results approached, she felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anxiety, excitement, fear, and hope swirled within her. She imagined countless scenarios, the possibility of rejection, the shock of discovering unknown relatives, or the joy of finding a welcoming family. She understood that the truth, whatever it was, would not erase her struggles or hardships, but it could provide clarity, identity, and perhaps a sense of belonging she had longed for all her life. Finally, the letter arrived. It was a simple envelope, but to her, it felt monumental. She held it with trembling hands, her heart pounding in her chest. Every memory of her childhood, every moment of neglect or kindness, every challenge she had overcome flashed through her mind. She knew that opening this envelope would change her life in ways she could not yet imagine. The moment was quiet, almost sacred, as she tore it open and began to read. The report confirmed what she had hoped and feared. She was indeed connected to a family she had never known, a family of resources, love, and history. The names, relationships, and details were overwhelming. She could hardly believe that the life she had imagined in secret, a life of belonging and recognition, was now a reality within reach. Yet she also felt apprehension. How would she approach this family? Would they accept her? Could she fit into a world so different from the one she had always known? She spent the next few days processing the information, writing letters to herself, asking questions, and imagining conversations she might have with her newfound relatives. Each imagined scenario brought both joy and fear. She knew that stepping into this new life would require courage, resilience, and patience. Yet, she felt ready. Her childhood had prepared her in ways she had never realized, teaching her to survive, to hope, and to empathize. Meanwhile, she continued with her daily routine, but a quiet transformation had begun. She walked taller, spoke more confidently, and smiled more freely. Even small interactions carried new significance. She understood that while her past had shaped her, her future was now something she could influence. The DNA report was not just a revelation about her origins, it was a key to a new chapter. One she was determined to write with care, courage, and authenticity. She also reached out to the distant relative who had guided her. They spoke at length about the next steps, meeting family members, understanding shared history, and navigating emotions that were bound to arise. The relative emphasized patience and empathy, reminding her that families are complex and that connections take time to nurture. Their guidance provided her with a framework, a way to approach the unknown with thoughtfulness and grace. She stands at the threshold of a new chapter. The DNA report has opened doors to a world she had never imagined, full of possibilities, connections, and challenges. She understands that her life will never be the same, but she also realizes that the journey is just beginning. With courage, resilience, and the quiet strength that has carried her through years of hardship, she prepares to step into this new reality, ready to uncover the truths about her birth and claim the life that has always been waiting for her. The days following the arrival of the DNA report were filled with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She could hardly focus on schoolwork or chores. Her mind kept drifting to the names on the paper, imagining faces, voices, and lives she had never known. Each name represented a thread of connection, a story waiting to be uncovered. She often sat by the window, staring at the busy streets outside, and wondered what it would feel like to finally meet the people who might truly be her family. Her distant relatives suggested starting with letters and calls before any in-person meetings. This approach helped her process her emotions and gave her a sense of control over the situation. She wrote letters with trembling hands, introducing herself, sharing her story, and expressing a mixture of hope and apprehension. She did not know what the responses would be, but putting her thoughts into words was a release, a way to confront her feelings and prepare for the encounters to come. A week later, she received her first reply. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but careful, polite, and warm. The letter expressed curiosity, cautious excitement, and a desire to know her better. They asked questions about her life, her experiences, and her feelings, showing an interest that she had rarely encountered before. Reading the letter, she felt a rush of emotions, joy, disbelief, nervousness, and a deep longing. She realized that these people were real, that the possibility of connection was tangible, and that her life could change in ways she had only dreamed of. She shared the letter with her distant relative, who smiled and encouraged her to respond thoughtfully. Writing the reply took hours. She described her life honestly, the struggles, the small joys, the moments of kindness, and the dreams she nurtured despite adversity. She also expressed her fears and hopes about meeting them, acknowledging that the unknown could be both thrilling and intimidating. Sending the letter felt like stepping into a new world, a world that had always been out of reach. Weeks passed as letters continued to exchange, each one revealing more about the family she had never known. She learned about their routines, their lives, their joys, and the ways they had been searching for her in their own way. Each letter was a bridge, connecting her past to a present she had never imagined. She felt herself growing in confidence, her voice gaining strength as she articulated her story and listened to theirs. The sense of isolation she had carried for so long began to fade, replaced by anticipation and cautious excitement. Finally, the day came when a meeting was arranged. She was to visit a house that was unlike anything she had ever known. It was large, with wide halls, polished floors, and gardens that stretched beyond the eye. For a moment, she felt as though she had stepped into a dream. The air smelled different, clean, fresh, and full of life. She paused at the gate, heart pounding, unsure if she was ready. Her distant relative held her hand, offering quiet reassurance. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. The first sight of her newfound relatives was overwhelming. Faces that she had imagined now looked back at her. Their smiles were tentative but genuine, their eyes filled with curiosity and kindness. There were questions, introductions, and moments of silence, each one heavy with emotion. She noticed small gestures, a hand on the shoulder, a gentle smile, an invitation to sit that spoke of care and interest. It was unlike anything she had experienced at home. Here, she was noticed, acknowledged, and treated with respect and warmth. The conversations were both comforting and challenging. She shared stories of her childhood, her struggles, her achievements, and her dreams. They listened attentively, sometimes nodding, sometimes asking questions, always showing interest. She realized that being heard, really heard, was a healing experience. The years of neglect, the sense of invisibility, began to lift as she found herself in the presence of people who wanted to know her, understand her, and include her. As the meeting continued, she learned more about her biological family. There were stories of missed opportunities, of separation, and of longing. She discovered that circumstances beyond anyone's control had kept them apart. The revelations were bittersweet joy in finally knowing, sadness for the years lost. Yet the overarching feeling was hope. They wanted to build a connection, to integrate her life with theirs in meaningful ways. And she wanted the same. During her stay, she explored the house and surroundings with awe. The library was filled with books, the garden bloomed with flowers she had never seen, and the kitchen smelled of meals prepared with care and love. She realized how different this life was from her childhood, yet she did not feel ashamed or unworthy. Instead, she felt inspired, imagining the possibilities that lay ahead if she could learn, grow, and contribute to this family in her own way. Evenings were spent in conversations, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. She noticed the differences in upbringing, the ease of expression, the abundance of opportunities, and the general sense of security. Yet she also recognized that, while their lives were different, the essence of human experience, joy, struggle, hope, and resilience was shared. This understanding made her feel connected not just to them, but to the wider human experience she had long observed from the margins. Despite the warmth, she faced internal challenges. She struggled with feelings of inadequacy, questioning whether she truly belonged in this new world. Her past experiences of neglect and invisibility had left marks that could not be erased overnight. She confided in her distant relative, who reminded her that belonging was a process, not a single moment. Gradually, she learned to navigate these emotions, understanding that self-acceptance and patience were essential in building meaningful relationships. The family invited her to participate in daily activities, from cooking meals to attending small gatherings. She initially felt awkward, unsure of her place, but gradually adapted. Her natural kindness, resilience, and thoughtfulness began to shine. They noticed her attention to detail, her willingness to help, and her empathy toward others. For the first time, she experienced a sense of contribution, of being valued for who she was, rather than what she could do out of necessity. School remained part of her life, but she began to notice new opportunities. Her newfound family supported her education, offering resources and encouragement she had never received before. Books, tutoring, and access to experiences she had only imagined became available. She realized that her potential was no longer limited by circumstances. The possibilities for growth, learning, and exploration expanded dramatically. She embraced them with enthusiasm. As days turned into weeks, she began forming deeper bonds with her biological family. Conversations evolved from curiosity to shared experiences, stories, and plans for the future. She laughed, shared secrets, and discovered common interests. The initial awkwardness faded, replaced by genuine connection. She felt a sense of belonging that had eluded her for so long, a sense of being part of something bigger than herself. Amid these changes, she also reflected on her original family. Though they had been distant and neglectful, they were part of her story, shaping her resilience and determination. She understood that gratitude and forgiveness were not mutually exclusive. She could cherish the lessons learned through hardship while embracing new relationships with openness and hope. The revelation of her birth and the embrace of her newfound family were transforming her perspective on life. She began to dream bigger, to set goals that once seemed impossible. Her imagination expanded beyond survival to possibilities of education, career, travel, and meaningful relationships. She felt empowered, recognizing that her past did not define her limits. The combination of her resilience and the support of those who now cared for her created a foundation for a life filled with potential. With her sitting in the garden of her new home, watching the sunset, the sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, reflecting the mixture of emotions she carried: joy, awe, reflection, and anticipation. She understood that the journey ahead would have challenges. Building connections would take time and patience, but for the first time, she felt she was not alone. She had found a place where she could belong, a family ready to embrace her, and a future brimming with hope and possibilities. Life in her newfound world began to settle into a rhythm, though it was very different from the one she had known. The house, large and warm, was filled with sounds of laughter, conversation, and music. There were smells of fresh bread, cooked meals, and flowers from the garden that drifted into every room. She had never experienced such comfort and security. At first, she was cautious, unsure if she truly belonged, but with each passing day, the feeling of being part of something larger began to take hold. Her biological family made an effort to include her in daily life. They shared meals together, discussed plans, and invited her opinions. For the first time, she felt that her thoughts mattered and that she had a voice. It was a new experience, one that was both exhilarating and frightening. She had grown up feeling invisible, and suddenly, everyone was listening. She took her time, learning to navigate conversations, to assert herself without fear, and to trust that her place in this family was real. Education became an exciting adventure. With access to better resources and encouragement from her family, she could explore subjects that had only been dreams before. There were books on topics she had never studied, computers to help with research, and even lessons from tutors who patiently explained concepts she had struggled with before. She found joy in learning, not just for survival, but for the sheer pleasure of discovering the world. Each new lesson was like unlocking a door she had never imagined existed, beyond academics. She began exploring hobbies and interests. She tried painting, which allowed her to express feelings she had long kept inside. She joined small music sessions, discovering a love for rhythm and sound. Dancing became another outlet, a way to celebrate movement and freedom. Each activity was a revelation, teaching her that life could be playful, expressive, and full of creativity. She marveled at how much she had missed simply because she had never had the opportunity. Her relationships with her biological family deepened over time. They shared stories of their own childhoods, struggles, and triumphs. She learned about ancestors, family traditions, and values that had been passed down. Conversations became exchanges of empathy and understanding rather than mere curiosity. She began to feel a sense of identity, not just through DNA, but through shared experiences, laughter, and mutual respect. Each day strengthened the bonds that had begun with letters and cautious meetings. Despite the new world she inhabited, she never forgot the family she had grown up with. She reflected on the lessons learned through hardship, the resilience built in the face of neglect, and the empathy she had developed through adversity. She realized that her past, though painful, had shaped her into someone capable of navigating this new life with patience and insight. Gratitude and forgiveness became intertwined, allowing her to carry both experiences without feeling torn between them. She also began to see changes within herself. Confidence, once fragile, grew stronger. She no longer hesitated to speak up in conversations, ask questions, or share her thoughts. Her posture, her expressions, and the way she carried herself reflected an emerging sense of self-worth. She learned that being noticed and valued by others was not something to fear or doubt. It was a recognition of the person she had always been. Even when no one had acknowledged it before, friendships within her new world blossomed slowly but surely. She met people who shared her interests, who encouraged her creativity, and who treated her with genuine respect. These friendships provided support and companionship, helping her navigate emotions that were still raw and complicated. She learned to open up, to trust, and to accept affection and encouragement without suspicion. The experience was new. It reinforced her understanding that human connections could be sources of strength and joy. During this time, she faced moments of doubt and insecurity. There were days when she wondered if she truly belonged, if she could meet the expectations of this new family, or if she was imposing herself. These feelings were natural, and she confronted them with honesty and reflection. She spoke with her distant relative and even wrote in her journal, exploring her emotions and finding ways to reconcile past and present. She realized that growth involved discomfort and that facing uncertainty was part of embracing a fuller life. The family supported her emotionally in ways she had never experienced. They celebrated achievements, comforted her during setbacks, and guided her with patience. She learned the value of empathy, kindness, and patience in relationships. The love she received was steady, not conditional. It helped her understand that she deserved care and respect simply for being herself. This understanding was transformative, reshaping how she viewed herself and others. As she settled into this new life, she began to consider her future more concretely. She set goals for education, personal growth, and experiences she had always dreamed of, but never pursued. With the family's guidance, she explored career options, traveled to cultural events, and attended workshops to develop skills. Each experience broadened her perspective and strengthened her belief that her past limitations did not define her future. She felt empowered, capable of shaping her own destiny. The reunion with her biological family also prompted reflections on her own identity. She grappled with questions of belonging, heritage, and self-definition. Who was she, truly? Was she the girl from the small, crumbling house, or the young woman embraced by a new family? The answer, she realized, was both. Her identity was a tapestry woven from all experiences, struggles, resilience, discoveries, and newfound connections. Accepting this complexity gave her inner peace, a sense of completeness she had never known. Part of this journey involved reconciling with her original family. Though they had been distant and sometimes neglectful, she reached out to maintain connection, understanding that love and loyalty could coexist across different worlds. She shared moments, checked in, and offered help where possible, while also acknowledging the boundaries that allowed her to thrive. This balance gave her a sense of agency, teaching her that relationships could be nurtured with intention and care. As weeks turned into months, she noticed subtle changes in her outlook and behavior. She became more proactive, taking initiative in school projects, family activities, and personal endeavors. She displayed leadership in group tasks, offered support to peers, and developed a sense of responsibility that was recognized and appreciated. These qualities were nurtured by both her natural resilience and the encouragement she received. Demonstrating how environment and opportunity can shape growth, she also began to mentor younger members of her biological family, sharing insights from her past struggles and offering guidance on education, resilience, and self-expression. This role gave her a sense of purpose and reinforced her understanding that experiences, even painful ones, could be valuable when shared thoughtfully. She realized that her journey was not just about personal growth, but about contributing to others' lives in meaningful ways. Through these experiences, she learned to navigate complex emotions. Joy and gratitude existed alongside fear and doubt, pride alongside humility. She discovered that strength was not the absence of vulnerability, but the ability to embrace it with courage. Love and connection were not always simple, but they were attainable through patience, honesty, and empathy. These lessons became central to her character, shaping how she approached life and relationships. The story of her birth, once a source of mystery and longing, became a foundation for growth rather than a mere revelation. She understood that identity and belonging were not simply about genetics, but about shared experiences, mutual respect, and emotional connection. She found fulfillment in blending her past with her present, honoring her journey while embracing new opportunities. With her standing in the garden one evening, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the warmth of the setting sun, she reflects on the journey from a lonely, neglected child to a young woman surrounded by love, guidance, and possibility. Though challenges remain, she feels confident, grounded, and ready to embrace the future. She knows that her story is still unfolding, that life will continue to test and shape her. But she now carries within her a sense of belonging, resilience, and hope that can guide her through anything. As months passed, her life transformed in ways she had never imagined. She had grown from a quiet, overlooked girl into a young woman with confidence, resilience, and a sense of belonging. Her days were filled with learning, laughter, exploration, and meaningful connections. Every morning, she woke with a sense of purpose, eager to embrace the opportunities that each day offered. She had a family that cared for her, friends who respected her, a growing understanding of herself and the world. Around her, her biological family had become a constant source of support. They celebrated her achievements, guided her when she struggled, and treated her with patience and love. Through shared meals, conversations, and daily activities, she discovered the warmth and stability she had longed for as a child. She realized that family was not just about blood or proximity, but about care, attention, and shared experiences. This understanding deepened her appreciation for the connections she was building and helped her navigate her emotions with clarity. Education remained a central focus. With access to books, tutors, and learning opportunities, she excelled in her studies, exploring subjects that fascinated her. She developed a passion for literature, history, and the sciences, finding joy in discovering new ideas and perspectives. Each accomplishment, no matter how small, reinforced her sense of capability and independence. She also began to help other students, sharing her knowledge and encouraging them to pursue their interests. Teaching became a way for her to give back, to honor the support she had received, and to strengthen her confidence. Beyond academics, she explored her creativity and interests with freedom. She painted, wrote stories, and experimented with music, expressing emotions she had long kept inside. Dancing became a joyful outlet, allowing her to celebrate movement, rhythm, and the physical freedom she had once lacked. Each creative endeavor was a step toward self-expression and healing, reinforcing her sense of identity and helping her integrate past experiences into a fuller understanding of herself. Her social life expanded as well. She built friendships based on mutual respect, shared interests, and trust. She learned to communicate openly, to navigate differences, and to offer support. These relationships taught her that connections could be nurturing, reliable, and fulfilling. She began to enjoy social activities she had previously observed only from the sidelines. Attending gatherings, celebrating milestones, and experiencing moments of joy that had once seemed impossible. Even as her life flourished, she remembered her original family. She maintained contact, offering support where she could, and showing gratitude for the lessons her childhood had taught her. She understood that love and loyalty could extend across multiple families, each shaping her in different ways. This balance allowed her to honor her past without being constrained by it, embracing the opportunities and support of her newfound family, while cherishing the resilience built through adversity. She also became aware of the impact she could have on others. Recognizing her journey from neglect to belonging, she felt a responsibility to help those who struggled with similar challenges. She volunteered, mentored younger children, and shared her story with honesty and empathy. Her experiences became a source of guidance and inspiration for others, demonstrating that resilience, curiosity, and hope could transform lives. She discovered that empowerment was not just personal, but could ripple outward, touching the lives of those around her. The emotional growth she experienced was profound. She learned to navigate feelings of doubt, insecurity, and fear with reflection and patience. She recognized that vulnerability was a strength, that acknowledging emotions did not diminish her resilience but enhanced it. She practiced empathy, understanding the complexities of human behavior, and learned to respond to challenges with thoughtfulness and composure. These lessons enriched her relationships and strengthened her sense of self. Her identity became a tapestry woven from both past and present. She embraced the girl who had survived hardship and the young woman who now thrived in love, support, and opportunity. She understood that her experiences, both painful and joyful, had shaped her character, teaching her lessons of perseverance, kindness, and gratitude. This holistic understanding allowed her to approach life with balance, self-awareness, and a deep appreciation for her journey. As she looked toward the future, her ambitions expanded. She dreamed of continuing her education, pursuing a career that combined creativity and service, and traveling to explore the world in its diversity. She envisioned a life filled with learning, meaningful work, and strong relationships. The obstacles she had once feared now appeared as challenges she could navigate. Supported by her resilience and the guidance of those who cared for her, the The bond with her biological family grew stronger. Shared experiences, traditions, and celebrations reinforced a sense of belonging and unity. They supported her endeavors, celebrated her achievements, and offered guidance when needed. She realized that trust, patience, and mutual respect were the foundations of healthy relationships. Through these interactions, she learned the value of connection, understanding, and unconditional care. She also maintained connections with her original family, offering kindness, support, and understanding. She acknowledged the hardships of the past without allowing them to define her present or future. This balance helped her cultivate empathy, forgiveness, and emotional intelligence, demonstrating that relationships could be nurtured thoughtfully. Even when complicated by history and circumstances, her life became a blend of structure and freedom. Daily routines provided stability, while opportunities for creativity, learning, and exploration allowed for growth. She balanced responsibilities with personal interests, discovering joy in both achievement and leisure. This equilibrium reinforced her sense of agency, teaching her that a fulfilling life required attention, care, and intentional choices. Through her journey, she learned the profound impact of being seen, heard, and valued. The neglect of her early years had left deep impressions. The care, attention, and love she received in her new life healed those wounds over time. She recognized that human connection, empathy, and understanding were transformative forces, capable of reshaping identity, confidence, and emotional well-being. Part of her growth involved mentoring and guiding others. She shared her experiences with younger relatives, peers, and children in her community, offering insights on resilience, education, and personal growth. Her story became a source of inspiration, showing that challenges could be overcome and that hope and determination could lead to meaningful transformation. She found fulfillment in contributing to others' lives, understanding that empowerment and kindness were powerful legacies. As she approached milestones in her personal and academic life, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The lonely, overlooked child had grown into a confident, capable, and compassionate young woman. Her identity, shaped by both hardship and love, was strong and multifaceted. She understood that life was an ongoing journey, filled with opportunities, challenges, and moments of connection. Her story was a testament to the power of resilience, hope, and the human capacity for growth. The story of her birth, once a source of mystery and longing, had transformed into a narrative of discovery, belonging, and empowerment. The DNA report had been the first step, but it was the journey that followed, embracing family, building relationships, exploring potential, and nurturing self-awareness, that had truly changed her life. She realized that identity, belonging, and purpose were not static. They evolved with experience, reflection, and connection. Concludes with her standing at the threshold of her future, looking out at the world with confidence, hope, and a deep sense of self. She carries the lessons of her past, the support of her family, and the knowledge that she is capable of shaping her own path. Her journey from neglect to belonging has transformed her, leaving her ready to embrace the next chapter with courage, compassion, and an unwavering belief in her worth and potential. The life she once dreamed of is now her reality, and she steps forward with gratitude, strength, and a heart open to the endless possibilities ahead.